I totally get it. The idea of pounding an energy drink, caffeine is absolutely like an ergogenic aid that works. But when it comes to e-gaming, esports, we have to look at what our body can provide if we just give ourselves the foods that support cognitive function, cognitive performance. And I'm not talking about, oh, eat this, it's good for your brain. No, I'm talking about eat this and rev up your brain. Okay. If you want to do the energy drinks, that's fine, but I do think that applying these things might be a better longer-term strategy for just that deeply rooted cognitive performance. First one we have to talk about is MCT oil. Now, a lot of people think MCT is only going to be for someone that's doing like a lower carb diet. Not the case. There was a study that was published in the journal of the Alzheimer's Association. One of these studies that just floored me, super, super cool, and this would by and large be the #1 thing to consume. If anything out of this video you're going to take, I would utilize MCT oil. This study took a look at 52 people with mild cognitive impairment, okay? And for 6 months, it gave them either a placebo or 30 grams of MCT per day, okay? At the end of the study, what they found was that the group that had the MCT had a 230% increase in ketone metabolism. Wait a minute, I thought you said we weren't going to talk about ketosis. I'm not telling you to go into ketosis. What I'm telling you is that the MCT oil caused the brain to have an increase in ketone metabolism. But get this, the glucose uptake within their brain never changed. So they were still having the same amount of glucose uptake into their brain cells. Nothing changed there. So if you were doing a keto diet, you'd be dropping your glucose levels a little bit, right? Glucose uptake remained the same. MCT oil drove up ketone metabolism by 230%. So now I'm going to go out on a limb and sort of extrapolate what this potentially means. And it means that you were able to burn the MCT oil as a ketone in addition to the glucose you're already burning. So you don't even have to be doing a ketogenic diet. You can still be getting potential brain benefit there. But we actually look at the hard data outside of just, okay, this is cool, what we see in fMRI, what we see in scans. But it actually, when they gave them a battery of tests, it improved their processing speed and it improved executive function. Executive function is what really is controlled by like the prefrontal cortex in a lot of ways. It's like what that cognitive function, that like real executive function that allows us to make good decisions. But then the improvement in processing speed is pretty awesome too. And then we have to take a look at this sort of hallmark study from a couple of years ago that was published in the National Academy of Sciences for the USA. And this takes a look at why, when our brain is utilizing ketones, even if glucose is still present, it can be such a good thing. Okay, ketones can improve what is called network stability. Okay, so what that means is that regions of the brain are more stable and communicate with one another better. Essentially, when you are gaming or doing anything, your brain has different regions that are communicating, rationalizing, emotional thought, cognitive function in terms of just logical thought, all kinds of things. They all have to work in tandem together, but if they don't communicate well, then you have a fuzzy thought and fuzzy thought patterns. So with this, we see an improvement there. Sure, if you were to go on a lower carb ketogenic diet, I would argue that you'd probably see some cognitive performance, at least that's my opinion. But just by having the MCTs and driving those ketones up, you are at least getting some of this benefit, which is pretty darn awesome. Okay, the next one is a very, very simple one. I just want you to try this. Instead of having an energy drink that has sugar in it, try sipping on electrolytes that are rich in salt. Okay, we forget that everything that's happening with our brain is electrical. And we think about athletes in a normal sense, right? Like the typical athlete. Okay, yeah, they're sweating a lot. Well, first of all, in esports, if you're really pushing it hard, you know that you'll be sweating. But secondly, the demand from your brain is a lot, and the nervous system requires minerals. It's always a balance and a gradient. Okay, our nerve cells, our neurons, it is always an electrochemical gradient with minerals and acetylcholine, all these different things that are communicating and transferring with this gradient. If sodium levels are low, one of the first things that's going to go is your cognitive function. And you may not realize it because everything is going to be status quo to you, but the performance on the screen or your performance on paper is going to diminish. So try sipping on some salt water, try sipping on electrolytes that do not have sugar, that are just maybe 500 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium, some potassium, maybe some magnesium. I put a link for the one that I use down below. It's actually a sample trial pack. If you want to try it out, it's called LMNT, LMNT. So you can get 8 sample packs of LMNT. You just pay shipping. So totally free sample outside of a couple bucks for shipping. So you can go to drinklmnt.com/Thomas. That's drinklmnt.com/Thomas, or just use the link down below. And again, it's like no ties. You can try it out if you like it. The mango chili flavor, the lemon lime flavor is awesome. And you're gonna feel like you're sipping on something super delicious, but it's probably helping out your cognitive function. So use that link down below. This next one sounds cheesy, but there's a huge benefit to it, okay? When you are choosing vegetables and fruits, and I'm not gonna get into the nuancy stuff of which exact ones, choose ones that are red, that are yellow, and that are orange. Okay, and the reason behind this is something simple. It's called carotenoids. Now, as an e-gamer, as someone that's staring at a screen a lot, you obviously have heard about the blue light thing, right? Maybe you wear blue light glasses. What's funny is I've always noticed that it's much more difficult to sell insurance. And what I mean by that is if I were to tell you, hey, the blue light's gonna damage your eyes in 10 years, you might not really care. Like if you were in your 50s or 60s, you might care, but right now you probably don't care. You're like, I just want to be my best. But if I were to explain to you that by actually taking care of your eyes with the right food, you can improve your visual acuity, then you might tune up and you might listen, right? So these carotenoids convert into vitamin A, which protect the eye. Now there's a study that was published in the journal Nutrients, and when you paraphrase what the researchers had said, ultimately in red, in yellow, in orange, those pigments, okay, those yellow pigments are going to directly support the yellow pigment that is in your retina, which means that you are having a free radical scavenging ability within your eye to scavenge the free radicals that come as a result of staring at a screen a lot. But the best part about this, in this journal Nutrient study, is they saw there was an improvement in visual acuity. That means that subjects were able to notice little things that they maybe weren't able to notice otherwise. So this is such an important thing. Imagine playing and seeing a movement that you just wouldn't have seen otherwise. And that's your reality. If you didn't see it, you didn't see it. But if you see it, you certainly see it. Okay, this next one is one that's super interesting. You've probably heard of people talking about like beetroot juice, right? Beets and how they have a benefit when it comes to nitric oxide. Well, that beet nitrate is great for physical performance, right? Like I use it pre-workout, stuff like that. But there's some really cool evidence how it affects the brain. It's wicked cool. There was a study published in the journal Physiology and Behavior, and it found that just a single dose of beetroot juice increased cerebral blood flow to the brain quite significantly. But it didn't just increase the blood flow to the brain. It increased the blood flow to the brain based upon the demand. What that means is that the blood flow increased in proportion to the needed boost. So if all of a sudden cognitive demand was much higher, blood flow increased to that region of the brain. When cognitive demand decreased, blood flow decreased from that region of the brain. This may not be as exciting to you as it is to me. To me, this is like super cool because this is like throttling when we need it based upon things that we can't even really fathom. Like you don't necessarily know when your cognitive demand is higher, but your body certainly does. And to be able to increase potential blood flow, that's pretty darn cool, okay? So beetroot juice, in the grand scheme of things, fairly low carb. You can get away with 20 milliliters and just get a nice little shot of it. Now I'm gonna sound weird for a second. If you wanted to and actually eat the beet greens, they're rich in vitamin K, but you don't have to do the beet greens. You could do any kind of leafy green. Okay, the reason that I'm a huge proponent of vitamin K, even if you want to take it in supplement form, honestly, vitamin K is very, very important for the synthesis of what are called sphingolipids. What? Okay, a sphingolipid is something that is in a neuronal cell membrane, like a brain cell membrane. And these sphingolipids are very critical for that membrane function. And the membranes are required for brain cells to talk to each other. So if vitamin K isn't present, we don't create as many sphingolipids, which are in heavy concentration in a brain cell membrane. So it's very important for a brain cell to communicate with another brain cell. Remember, it's those electrical chemical gradients, okay? Those electrochemical gradients in between, or that are in the cell membranes that allow that communication. We have to support that. Now we talk about eggs. Okay, if you're going to eat something, it probably isn't the best idea to load up on a bunch of carbohydrates that are gonna maybe make you feel good for a while, but then send you on either a slow, steady crash or a pretty severe crash. So if you look at the benefit of eggs, yes, you have satiety that comes with them, you have fats that might support the brain function, sure, but let's look at some research as to why eggs might actually provide a more nitty-gritty benefit for you. This study was published in the journal Current Developments in Nutrition. Okay, it took a look at kiddos, so from ages like 9 to 14. Now in this case, they gave them a standard breakfast, and after a standard breakfast, they gave them either whole eggs, egg yolks, or egg whites, or yogurt, or nothing. What they found is that the subjects that had the egg yolks ended up having better cognitive performance, even than the whole egg or the egg white. The egg yolks really seemed to provide the benefit for them. They found that it improved their short-term learning and their memory. Okay, now tell me a world where you don't want to have better short-term learning, being able to learn a task really quick, and better memory, especially in the line of work or gaming that you're doing, right? The reason behind this, we could speculate, could be the fats, but it could also be the choline, okay? So the egg yolks are super rich in choline. So the choline is a precursor to what's called acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, which once again allows this signal to go from neuron to neuron. More acetylcholine means more signals being able to be transmitted. Very, very, very important. But another piece that we have to look at is the neuroplasticity, the ability for the brain to adapt and mold and be able to get better at things. But also the acetylcholine plays such a huge role in the signal that goes from the brain down the nerve, but in that synapse between the nerve cell and a muscle cell. So being able to cognitively figure out what's going on and quickly be able to move your muscles accordingly, whether you're in sport, e-sport, or whatever, being able to translate that quick cognitive function thought into physical movement is so unbelievably important. Now, of course, there's choline supplements you could take, and I know the gaming world specifically is all about hacks, right? How do we add this into the mix? If you do it through food, you actually give yourself this nice foundation that allows you to get a more ergogenic effect from potential supplementation. So don't rely on the supplementation, rely on the food and then add the supplementation after the fact, okay? One more thing you may want to consider as a supplement is a low dose creatine, like 2 grams of creatine, but that's talked about a lot in nootropic videos, which I'm sure you've already researched. This is much more about food based. So adding those 2 grams of creatine in addition to what we've been talking about might be very beneficial. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. Don't forget to check out that free trial of LMNT down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.